Christ is risen. Yeah, so Christ is indeed alive, like he is here. He's not dead anymore, and he has come out of the tomb. The tomb is empty. Everything is different. The darkness has been rolled back. Light fills our lives once again. And yet, the disciples are hiding. Why are they hiding? What are you hiding? Is the question that we are asking today, right? Like that. What are they hiding, and what are you hiding deep down in there? Because they know that the Christ is risen. All right, I helped you with that one, right? That's but they're hiding in an upper room. But I would say that there's a good reason why they're hiding. The reason makes sense. I mean, they're scared of the Jewish leaders, the people that crucified Jesus. They're worried about them. But also, they're also if Jesus does come back, how disappointed is he going to be with them, right? Because Peter denied Jesus 3 times. That's stuff that makes Jesus cry, right? And he comes back and rebukes you. I mean, Peter also, when Jesus was being arrested, he took a sword and in the melee of Jesus getting arrested, cut off somebody's ear, and Jesus rebuked him for that. That's not good. And even one of their own, Judas. You never want to be the Judas in your friend group, right? Some of you were the Judases in your friend group, aren't you? The guy that sells everyone else. You're the snitch, right? Like that. That's it. No, never. Whatever. That's I don't believe it. But Judas was one of their own. We like to throw Judas away, but he was one of their brothers, right? That's and he betrayed Jesus, sold him out. Right? So they hide. They don't know, it makes sense while they're hiding, but what are you hiding today? Because we know the Easter story, right? Christ is risen. We at least hear it once a year, right? And some of you have been I see you every week. I'm not going to say that's too much. I'm not going to say that. But some of you, I've never seen you before. So some of you I see, a few times a year, something like that. But I think there's this authentic stretch all the way through it that there's something that we're kind of hiding in the midst of us. That we know this Easter story, but there's still, we haven't received freedom from it in that. So I want to go through the story about Easter just real fast as it's presented in the Gospel of John. Now, what I love about the Gospels, and especially John here, is that it's this really well-told story. I don't know if any of you have that one friend who's really good at telling stories. And he's talking about some terrible thing that happened to him, at a 7-Eleven or something like that. There's always that one friend who's always got the stories about everything going wrong. But he always is peppering in all these funny details, as he's going through. That's what John is doing. Because the disciples are scared. They are on the outskirts. They don't know what's going on, so much so that they've locked themselves into this upper room. But they hear there's all these little funny stories going through there. So we have Mary Magdalene, that she comes to the tomb of Jesus, and she comes with all these spices and, these balms to further work on the body and anoint the body, in the burial, going there to grieve, basically. And, pay her respects, right? Well, when she gets there, all of a sudden, she notices that the tomb's entrance is rolled away, right? The tomb is empty. Christ is risen. Right. But no, that's not what she thought. She's like, somebody has stolen the body of Jesus. Immediately goes to the negative, right? And she's like, oh, I need to tell someone. And so she's like, let's go get let's go get Peter and John. So she runs to the house to get Peter and John. Like, somebody has stolen the body. And they're like, how could this day get any worse? Like, it just keeps going. And then they run. And this is where we get a glimpse of the resurrection. We get this glimpse of, like, in the midst of this tragedy of a story, you get these glimpses of high notes as we're going through it here. So you get this glimpse of the resurrection, because suddenly John, with a twinkle in his eyes as he's writing it down on parchment, right? Like he's writing it down, and he's like, all of a sudden there's a foot race that happens, right? So he says, so Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Now the other disciple is the author of the book. That's how he describes himself, over there. But look at, he throws it in Peter's face. He goes, both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter to the tomb first. Like, let's just get that in writing really quick. You know, like, this might as well be a contract here, right? Like, it's like, Peter, did you see what I wrote? Like that's, so like that's, like he's doing this whole thing, and it's just kind of like, why is there a foot race in the midst of all of this stuff, right? And I love how it's presented. It's actually in the bulletin. I don't think I put it on a slide. I'll have to do that for the next one. But it says, no, it's there. It's there. Here, it's right here. And so the other disciple, bends over and looks at the strips of linen lying there. But he didn't go in, right? But then look at the shade he throws Peter again. And then Peter came along. Like that's, and Peter, like, he like when you talk about someone, there's sometimes there's those races that you like, oh, I won, but you were like right behind me. That's not how he describes it here. Then Peter finally showed up, after his awesome display of cardio there. And Peter came along, and he goes straight into the tomb. Right? He goes into the tomb, and he sees, like, they see all the linens and everything lying there. They see all the stuff that's there. And it's like, they look at that. It's like, well, they couldn't have stolen his body, because why would grave robbers like leave all the linens, like all that stuff? Wouldn't you just scoop and run type of thing if you're stealing? Like, why leave everything there, like with the thing on his face and all that stuff? And then finally the other disciple, John, the author here, he reached the tomb. And I love this phrase. And this, as I've gotten older, this phrase means so much more to me now. He goes, he finally went into the tomb. He saw and believed. Now look at the qualifying statements. There's like quotation fingers here. But they still didn't understand anything that they were talking about, or read or anything there. He didn't get what was happening. Listen, I'm paid in this job. I know that's surprising. I hear what some of you are saying. I'm paid in this job to explain how all of this makes sense. A lot of this doesn't make sense, right? It just doesn't. Like, and that's kind of what we're talking. But John, he saw something amazing all of a sudden. He didn't understand it, but there was something that was burning inside of his heart. And it wasn't all the deviled eggs he ate for breakfast this morning. Like, there was something that was burning inside of him, right? In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus is walking with these two guys after the resurrection, and they don't know it's Jesus. Jesus likes this whole hiding thing after the resurrection. And after he revealed himself, they were like, were not our hearts burning within us? I think that's what's going on with John. He didn't understand it, but there was that deep down feeling down in there, right? Like it's over there, and that means so much. And so what did they do then? What did these two disciples do, John and Peter? They went to their house. They just went back home. And you know what they do when they got home? They locked all the doors like a conspiracy theorist, right? Like just snap, snip, snip, all the way down. Like all the locks on the doors were like, the people are out to get us, and Jesus, we can't look at his body anymore. Who knows what's going on, right? Like, I don't know what's happening there. They went home. But you know what they did? They went home together There were 3 people at the tomb. They left Mary there. There's grave robbers out and about. And they're just like, let's go home. What about her? She's fine. Right? Like that's not like come on, guys, be better, right? Be better at this. This is why you denied Peter. That's just all they do. So Mary's out there grieving. They went home. She's out grieving over there, and then the beautiful way this is written. I love it. She's out grieving by this thing, and then she gets like wind on the back of her neck. And that wind is such a beautiful word. She's out grieving, and Jesus comes up behind her. And you know that sense that we all have, like that some of us, we have it more than others, but you get a sense, and you kind of know if there's danger or not, right? Danger or safety, like there's someone behind you and you're like, ooh, I need to be worried about this person, and you kind of get a sense of that. Well, she senses that someone's over there, and she doesn't sense danger. In fact, it says that she thinks that it's the gardener. Now, this is John, the author here, being super cheeky, giving us a glimpse of the resurrection here. Because the gardener, that's Jesus there. This is a photograph of the events of the day. And that's Jesus there with the shovel and all that stuff. She thinks that he's the gardener. And so what's beautiful about that is that the Hebrew understanding of God the Father is that he is the gardener, the creator. That the world was formless and void, right? And the Spirit of God, that word in Hebrew is ruach. Ruach is the same word as breath, the same word as wind, same word as spirit, right? And so his breath was over the formless and void, and with that breathy voice, he created the world, right? Let there be light. Like, it's got to be breathy, you know? Let there be light. And there was, and he created, and God created this beautiful garden and everything in it. The image of God in the Old Testament is that of a gardener cultivating the earth all around it. And so when Mary senses that wind on the back of her neck, right? She senses that she can feel a truth so deep down, she thinks it's the gardener, and then Jesus says her name. And I love this because Jesus says her name and she instantly recognizes it. Now, I liken this. My wife's name is Coley. She's sitting over there. I'm the only one that says Coley like how I say it. And she could, if there was a lineup of a bunch of us all saying her name, she could probably point me out like that. She goes, that's the one that I'm disappointed with, right? Like that. That's like all of those things. That's it right there. And I think I liken that to Mary, like to Jesus. He says her name, probably with the same love and care that he said it over 1,000 times that they've been together. And instantly she sees him. She thinks he's the gardener, and he says her name, and she's like, Lord, like Christ is risen. Good. You could sense it. I could tell. Like, you had that sense about you, right? That it was there. Like she could see that he was there. But there's still an issue. The disciples went home, and they're still living in all that fear, right? They, like a conspiracy theorist, they got all the doors locked, right? All the locks on the door there. Like they're still hiding. They know something is up, and yet they're hiding in that upper room with the doors locked. We hide a lot, you know? We put our masks on. You know, we put our mask on about what we do in this life. When our life can just be aching, and we'll put on that smiley face and just everything's all righty. I'm much happier being a Stepford wife today than anything else. You know, we hide behind perfect diets, perfect parenting techniques, perfect theology. Right? We hide behind a bunch of things that we try to overcome because there's usually, I think, like some regret inside of a lot of us. I know one of the ways that we hide is when we really disappoint someone, or we get in an argument with somebody, and we know that we are on the bad side of that argument, but our pride still tells us to keep arguing, even though we know we're wrong. Have you guys all done that before? You don't have to admit it. You can continue to hide. But you know, when you go to Publix and that person you've been in an argument with, who was actually right, like you see them and you do that move, do you go down that aisle? No. You say in your inner monologue, well, I don't need baked beans today, and you just skip that aisle, right? And you're just watching over there, like we hide. We hide all the time. We hide from all of these things, even though we've been completely forgiven, even though we have life and all these things that we celebrate on Easter, we still hide. We just do it, and the disciples hide in that room. They hide in that upper room because they're ashamed of what they did to Jesus. They're scared that they're going to die like Jesus, right? Like these guys are over there and they're hiding, they're scared. And then all of a sudden, Jesus meets them in the room. In this locked room, Jesus, in the midst of the resurrection, suddenly is just standing in front of them. And the first thing out of his mouth is not, you guys need to be better. Right? You left Mary all by herself crying, right? Like no. It's peace be with you. You can tell it's important because it's highlighted. I appreciate that, Dare. I thought that joke was funny. Like he comes in and Jesus isn't hidden at all. That's what I love about this. Like we hide our hurts and pains. Right? We'll put together those masks and cover ourselves up and all those things. And Jesus isn't hiding at all. He appears in the room, not hiding at all, because he says, peace be with you. And he shows his wounds. The wounds, we've been singing a song all Lent, that it was my sin that held him there, was a line from that. With his wounds and all outside, showing, that it's like, hey, you caused this. But instead of saying that, he's showing it and saying, peace be with you. Bringing that real peace, that unhidden peace, bringing peace into your own lives, right? And then he says that, and then he goes up to him and he breathes on them. He breathes on them. He appears in the room, says, peace be with you, with all of his wounds all over there, and then he breathes on them. Hopefully he didn't have garlic right before that, but he just breathes on them. And that's that same word, right? That's that word that's part of the creation, that God breathed when he said, let there be light, right? When he breathed the creation into existence and spirit in there. And we can still feel the spirit all around us as the wind whips up and moves and causes the palmetto bushes outside to clap their hands. A God animating the creation, that he formed Adam out of the creation, right? And he breathed, spirited, right, into Adam's nostrils, animating his entire existence, right? He breathes on them, gives them the Holy Spirit. He breathes on them and says, you are forgiven. You are free. Go bring that freedom to others. And notice he doesn't say do more. He doesn't say, you got to be better. He doesn't say, you guys really let me down this time. He doesn't say, you got to go memorize all these things in order to really please me. He just says, peace be with you. Breathes on them forgiveness and says, go tell everyone else they're okay. Now, some of you I know. Some of you I know your stories. A lot of you in this room right now, I don't know. But I do know that there's a common throughput in all of this, and I know this because I have felt it too, is that the church hasn't always been a good place for you. That there are toxic people that are in it that tell you all kinds of toxic, bad things That's like, oh, God is watching, you better be good, right? You got to meet God halfway in order for him to save you. You got to be perfect and memorize all these things. You can't love those people. They're part of the baddies. You can't do any of these things. I've experienced all of that too. And what all of this means to me, with Jesus saying peace and that he rose from the dead, is that oftentimes I hide too. I hide behind my self-righteousness. I hide behind my work. Literally hide behind my work, as you can see here. My shirt's not tucked in. I hide behind my religion. I hide behind my all of these things, right? I hide behind my creativity. I hide behind all of this stuff. I hide my shame and my hurts deep down where no one can see it. But what I want to show you guys is that Jesus shows up in the midst of my locked room deep down that I don't want anyone to see. Just like he shows up to you, and he breathes peace into you, and animating me anew, just like he animated Adam in this new creation. And he meets me there, not when I finally get my life together, but when I'm hiding in the midst of my room that I don't want anyone to see. And he gives me peace. And that's what I wanted to tell you today. And I think that's good news. So Christ is risen. Please stand for our next song. May God bless